Rewind.
All right, thank you for listening to another episode of Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. I'm Mike. As always, with me, I've got my buddy Alex. What's up, man?
What's going on, dude?
We're talking about Mortal Kombat today, and I'm very excited about this one. We've been talking about this one for a whole year. We've been looking forward to this episode. And
I was not on board at first, but I got real excited in the last month.
Me too. Like
I was always on board with this episode. I'm talking about the movie itself, though. I did not think it was going to be.
I knew what
very
you
special.
meant. I was really excited about this one because I've been wanting to go back to the '95 one for a while, and I know you went back to it last year when we did the video game episode with Mario and Sonic.
I think I watched this once every 2 years.
Yeah, that's. I would say I watch it maybe every 3 to 5 years, the '95 version.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to talk about this one. Like, I did not have high hopes for this. When I first heard about it, I was like, okay, this sounds great. But it kept getting delayed even before the pandemic. Like, they wrapped this in 2019. It was supposed to come out early 2020.
Yeah.
And then it got pushed and pushed and pushed. But it got pushed regardless, like even before the pandemic started and we even knew it was going to happen. It got pushed to like the end of the year, early last year, before we were even concerned about this. So I was like, that doesn't bode well. It got pushed from like October of 2019 to January or February of 2020. And that normally is where you kind of put the movies that you don't think are going to do well or aren't very good. And so I didn't think that this was going to be a good movie. And
after seeing the first trailer, I had very low expectations for it too. Something about the first trailer just did not like sit well with me. And I remember talking to you about like Sub-Zero's mask specifically.
You did. You did have an issue with that. You sent me pictures of it and like GIFs of it and you didn't like it. But I
still don't think it holds up. I think that's one of the things that the movie did wrong. But that's a very small nitpick.
I disagree with you. I think the Sub-Zero costume is awesome, but
I said his mask. I did not say his costume.
Well, that's part of his costume.
Yeah, but I'm only talking about his mask, and you're trying
fair.
to make it a different thing. That I'm a big costume jerk, and I'm not.
You're a costume jerk.
I'm not a costume jerk.
You jerk.
Do you just have pillows behind you?
No, there's
he has pillows on his roof.
Oh yeah, that's to block off because our apartment it's like a loft style, so each bedroom actually has like a 4x6 window. But that's open, and we filled this one with plexi, but it has a beam going across the ceiling. So we need
two smaller pieces of plexi.
That's what we're gonna do that, or we're gonna just do like a wood finish, like fill it in with wood. I actually want to put foam up there and then 2 boards painted white to kind of cover it, but we just haven't got to that yet. So the pillows are to kind of muffle the sound downstairs.
Fascinating. Anyway, Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat 95. This was a big deal. This was like the second big video game movie after Mario. And Mario, obviously, we talked about and didn't do well and was critically panned.
Yeah,
and everything.
It's funny.
This one was a hit.
Yeah, and like it's not a good movie, but it is a decent amount of fun. And being only the second video game movie, there wasn't really precedent for how bad most video game movies would end up being, and I think that's like a curse that has continued to this day almost. But Mortal Kombat is sort of the one. It's kind of the best one. It's kind of the best video game movie.
A lot of people say it's the best video game movie ever, and then Tomb
Raider
2018.
It's not saying a whole lot.
No, it's not. Like, some people think Tomb Raider with Alicia Vikander took the spot as the best video game movie. I was a little underwhelmed by that one. Like, I have not gone back to watch that movie. But I have gone back to watch this numerous times over the last 25 years. Yeah. So it does a lot of things right. Like the costumes look like the costumes from the video games at the time. And one of the writers, Ed Boon, had a lot to do with the movie. He helped write it. He voiced Scorpion in it. So like the creators of the video game had their hand in this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, it's got a big budget. Like, they spent money on this thing. You wouldn't know it from the CG, but I think you can't really hold that against.
They didn't spend that much money on it. They only spent $18 million on it.
I mean, $18 million is pretty good for that time for a video game movie.
For a video game movie, but not for like a big action movie. And this was like
how much was the budget for the new one?
The new one was 50 to 55 million, which is still, that's small. Like they do that.
That's comparable with inflation and stuff.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty comparable. So like, it wasn't cheap.
I
But
still
it
think
also wasn't
55 is
super
a good
expensive.
amount of money for this one.
I think so. I think so. Absolutely. But like, what do you remember about this movie? Clearly, you watched it. You mentioned that you watched it
Yeah,
like
I
every
mean,
year or two.
I was 10 years old when this came out, and
I was 7.
exactly the right age for a Mortal Kombat movie. I was all into the games. I think this came out after the second one, and like right around the time the third one was going to be released.
It came
I
out
think
right after the second.
I think it was the same year as the third game.
Annihilation was around the sequels when the third game came out. They made a big deal. They were really
2 years
pushing
later,
to get the
right?
sequel out around this time of the third game.
Yeah.
That was a big push because the first game only came out in 92 and this came out in 95. Like, that's a pretty quick turnaround to have a game blow up, have issues with like the government wanting to censor the game. It wasn't available on Nintendo. It was only available on Sega or the arcade. Like, it's pretty impressive that this movie got made when it did.
Yeah. And I think they got pretty close to an R too. It wouldn't have happened at that time. But I think they pushed the PG-13 rating pretty far.
Really, the only thing that's borderline is when they kill Scorpion. They like cut his head in half with a shield, but at that point it's like a stop motion puppet and it's like slime that comes out versus blood, and that's how they're able to get away with it. But yeah, it's a pretty solid movie. Do you want me to summarize this one, or do you want to summarize this one before we start picking it apart?
Go for it.
All right, so this is based obviously on the very popular video game of the same time. It's about an ancient tournament where the best fighters of different realms face off each other. The goal is to win 10 tournaments, and then that realm basically gets the right to invade the other realm. So at this point, Outworld, which is kind of like the evil realm, has won 9 tournaments, and it's up to Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, and Sonya Blade, who are all kind of recruited by Raiden to make sure that they don't get the final victory, and they save the day. And each fighter kind of has their own little quest / subplot / internal journey that they need to complete to become self-actualized.
Commonly referred to as an arc.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's worth noting also, this is Liu Kang's movie.
Oh yeah,
he's the star. It's his story.
It would be him or Johnny Cage. Like, I feel like Johnny Cage drives the plot a lot more than Liu Kang does. But Liu Kang is set up to be the hero and the chosen one.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an ensemble, but Liu Kang is clearly the protagonist. It's Robin Chow's movie.
Yeah, definitely more in the sequel. Which did you end? I know you said you were going to watch it and you started. Did you get through the sequel too? We're not going to talk about the sequel, but we both kind of just felt like watching it. You're right. This is set up to be Liu Kang's movie. There was supposed to be a third movie. And I guess we'll talk more about that in our Patreon episode, because that's what we talked about the sequel. But it's interesting because Liu Kang.
What is the third movie supposed to be?
The third movie was supposed to be called like Armageddon, and was in development, and then apparently got shut down after Hurricane Katrina. They tried to use Katrina as the example. Like, also like 9/11 was part of it too. Like they used all these like world events to justify not making it. But apparently it was like in development. Christopher Lambert was supposed to come back, and so was Lyndon Ashby, who played Johnny Cage. Like, they were supposed to come back for the third movie, like Robin Williams with the Aladdin movies.
And of course, well, we'll get into that when we talk about Annihilation, I guess.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
But you're right. Like, Robin Chow as Liu Kang is kind of set up to be the lead, although I think he's given the least amount to do until the very end of the movie. But I feel like all the major plot developments, or all the things that move the plot forward, are Luke Cage.
Johnny Cage?
Or Johnny Cage? Yeah, Johnny Cage.
What franchise are we talking about here?
Yeah, Johnny Cage kind of drives everything.
Give me an example.
So, he's the one who kind of initiates fighting Prince Goro, who's the reigning champion, and he's also the one that makes the bet essentially with Shang Tsung. Which is what really sets the finale going. And then he's also the one who kind of leads them down through like the catacombs. There's not really a good way to describe the island that they're at, like the weird castle, but he's the one who kind of gets them all underground and leads the way, and then gets them into that ambush. So it seems like all the stuff is orchestrated by Johnny Cage. He's also kind of the first one to show up at the boat at the beginning, and he kind of like is the one that kind of gets everybody talking to each other, Liu Kang and Sonya Blade. Like, he's kind of the one who unites everybody from the human element before we really get involved with Raiden.
I think you just really like Johnny Cage.
No, I don't like Johnny Cage all that much. Like, I remember this being more of a Liu Kang-driven movie, but this time around, I felt like Johnny Cage kind of dominated a lot of the aspects of the movie. He also got to kill Scorpion, and he got to take on, and he killed Goro. So he killed two of the three biggest villain characters.
Yeah, but Liu Kang kills Sub-Zero and Shang Tsung.
And Shang Tsung, yeah.
I think it's an ensemble movie, but Liu Kang, is the one with the destiny to defeat Shang Tsung and
I think
win Mortal Kombat.
I think we can agree that
and I think
Sonya Blade kind of gets the shaft.
Well, I was going to say also, I think they each have their individual arcs, and it is very much like an ensemble movie. But Liu Kang has his revenge arc with Shang Tsung killing his brother. I think is sort of the strongest one, because Johnny's just sort of getting over being a narcissist, and Sonya is avenging her old partner, I guess. But we never see him. We don't really know a whole lot about that. It's more about her like learning to ask for help when she needs it. That's sort of her arc.
Yeah.
But I think
and she gets her.
It's
like she gets two arcs, because like her whole thing is, I want revenge on Kano, but she kills Kano in her first fight, and then it's just like, oh yeah, she needs to learn to be a team player now.
Yeah, it's pretty thin.
Yeah,
right.
And then she becomes the
damsel,
and then she becomes the damsel in distress at the end of the movie.
That really bummed me out. I think the third act of this movie is not great.
And it's weird, because she also, like, one of the things that one of my notes was, like, she doesn't give a shit about collateral damage. Like, the beginning of the movie, she's hunting Kano, and, like, Shang Tsung goes to Kano and is like, hey, I really want Sonya Blade. Like, there's also this weird subplot that Shang Tsung is, like, into her, but it's not really explained.
Yeah, there's that, and I think that also connects to this, like, this thing that they don't really explain, where he's, like, psychic or something. Like, he's referring to a prophecy that we don't know about.
Yeah, Shang Tsung's character just. I want to get. I'm going to talk about Sonya Blade for just 1 second, and then I would like to talk about Shang Tsung, because his whole thing is weird, but he's perfectly played by Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. He's fantastic. But Sonya Blade at the beginning of the movie is being drawn to the island, and Shang Tsung basically uses Kano as bait, and he's just like, hey, make sure like you don't get caught, but like get Sonya Blade to the boat. But she's like walking through this like club in Hong Kong, and there's just like hundreds of people dancing, and she's just like walking through the crowd, and she's got like her machine gun, and she's just like hitting dancers with like her gun to get out of the way.
Nobody seems to care.
Yeah, and then she's just like starts shooting at like these ninjas, and the ninjas are shooting back at her, and like she doesn't give a shit about collateral damage. It's fucking weird.
And also the club just like keeps on rocking.
Yeah, nobody cares that there's like ninjas and like a white chick in Hong Kong shooting machine guns in the middle of a crowd.
Yeah, it was it doesn't seem like it's very well thought through.
Yeah, but I think we talked about wanting off air. We talked about wanting to discuss the rules of Mortal Kombat, and I think this is a really great place where we can talk about Shang Tsung as well, because I didn't really understand his role, because they mention like offhand. There's like one line of dialogue somewhere where they mention that if you win, if you're the reigning champion, you get long life, but they also say that Prince Goro is the remaining champion. But it also seems like
Shang Tsung is a sorcerer. That's why he consumes people's souls. That's how he stays alive for so long.
Got it. And then he gives Prince Goro Prince Goro is his champion for Outer World.
But you're right. In the movie, that is not super clear. Like, I'm saying that as a fan of the games.
Correct. So it's not super clear. But then also his role isn't very clear, because he's kind of set up to be like the referee and the recruiter and everything. He's like, fight, finish him, give me your soul. And like,
and he also is like bending rules and stuff, and it feels like there should be multiple judges, like Chuck Norris or somebody should be there. Like, someone needs to represent Earth at this thing.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be great. It's weird that the Elder Gods, and so I guess, and you're more of a fan of the game. I've played the original games, but like I was like a little kid, I don't really remember the story. And I played the DC versus Mortal Kombat game. And then I played a little bit of Mortal Kombat 11. Like, I jumped into 11.
Yeah.
And I only played it for like a few hours, so I'm not like the biggest fighting game fan. But it seemed like I know the general rule is like here are the elder gods, and then you have like Shao Kahn, and Raiden are kind of like intermediate, like they're just below the elder gods. And then you have Shang Tsung, and then you have like all the champions. But it's like the elder gods are supposed to be like essentially the umpires, the referees of the universe, making sure that there's balance.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like anybody oversees the tournament. Like, oh, whoever won the tournament last time gets to kind of oversee it, and we're not really going to pay attention to it because Shang Tsung like cheats like crazy and like lies about the rules.
Yeah.
And there's also a point.
I feel like Raiden and Shang Tsung are like the liaisons from either realm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like that makes sense.
But Raiden is like not present on the in this movie on the island. Like he just kind of pops up and he's like, "You guys are not doing good. You should try a little bit harder." Like he's like an absentee coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then there's also
Shang Tsung is
like
Shang Tsung is like is present, like you said, for every match, and he's like presiding over it. He's always around. He's always doing something. And it's like,
yeah,
hey, Raiden,
but he's
can
like
you
the
be
ref.
there? Could you like be there more often?
Right, he's like the ref, but then he also fights at the end. So it's like he's a ref and he gets to fight and he gets to make the rules. And there's several points where like Raiden shows up at convenient moments, and like there's a point at the beginning of the movie where Sub-Zero and Scorpion are on the same team, and like they're bitter enemies. And there's like one line of dialogue to justify them both being bad guys where like Shang Tsung is like, they're bitter enemies, but they're both under my mind control, kind of thing. And then Raiden's like, you guys aren't supposed to attack my champions until after the tournament starts. What are you doing? Shang Tsung's like, oh man, you caught me, kind of thing. And then later on in the movie, like conveniently, like Raiden will pop up a couple times and it's like, he didn't tell you about this one rule. Oh, he didn't tell you about this one rule. Like it pops up a couple times. It's like, and then there's certain points where
and also
like
the fights with Scorpion and Sub-Zero are not part of the tournament. They're just trying to like take out the
they're not?
Earth
They're
champions.
not part of it?
I mean, they're not like on the beach with all the flags around them, right?
Yeah, that's the thing that's weird. Is like,
and nobody's watching them.
And they don't really say what Mortal Kombat is, because one of the rules is like once it begins, you can't deny Mortal Kombat. But then there's also like the crux of the movie, like the climax of the movie is Johnny Cage goes to Shang Tsung and is like, hey, I want to fight Goro. And then he's like, fine, but if you fight Goro, I get to fight the winner, or I get to pick a champion to fight the winner of it. And Johnny Cage is like, cool. And Raiden's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? I just told you, don't jump in feet first. You're always getting into fights that you shouldn't be getting in. And then Johnny goes, yeah, but you told, we've just been kind of like following, and now, the fate of the universe is in store or at stake, and like we need to take action and we need to like take the reins. And Raiden's like, this guy gets it. This guy fucks. And it's just like, wait, did he do a bad thing or not? Like you were just yelling at him, but he just says like, well, I wanted to take control, and now you're like proud of him. But it's like, it really jeopardized everything because Shao Shung was able to like become a fighter and challenge whoever he wants. And then it gets to a point where he goes, all right, well, I'm going to challenge Sonya Blade. And if Sonya Blade doesn't accept my challenge, then she loses. And Raiden goes, nah, like she gets to.
I think what he says is, I don't think so.
Yeah.
One of the 4 fucking times he says that in the movie.
Yeah. And then he's like, she has to accept the challenge. She hasn't accepted it. And then Liu Kang's like, wait, I'll challenge you. So then it just becomes like, is it a tournament or not? Because it seems like people can just challenge people whenever the fuck they want.
Yeah. And also, why are humans fighting other humans?
Yeah, that's the thing that doesn't make sense. Yeah, like why is Kano, like if they're supposed to be from the same realm, like could Liu Kang and Sonya Blade have popped up if it was an actual bracket? Like it doesn't seem like there's a bracket like NCAA.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tournament. There should be a bracket.
Yeah, it's like in theory you would think that you could have 2 Earth Realm fighters going up against each other if it was an actual tournament.
But why would they even do that?
Right, it doesn't make any sense. It's not a tournament.
Yeah, I agree. Liu Kang fights. It's Liu Kang, right? He fights the black dude with the dreads. That like he does a lion's roar for some reason.
Yeah, he roars a bunch, and then he does.
It seems like a lot of wasted opportunities to have other characters in these movies. Also,
yeah.
I think maybe they're thinking about sequels, but there's just there's a lot of like other human characters that are not anybody.
Right, and then you have the other person who shows up, and she doesn't do much in this movie. She's technically bigger in the other movie, but Katana shows up, and she's the princess, and she like helps Liu Kang cheat. She like goes up. Like, why does Liu Kang and Katana fight? Like, I didn't understand that. There's a point where Liu Kang.
It feels like it's an exhibition, but that's one that should be a real fight because she's from a different realm.
Right. And then she
like
just like walks off. She's like, I'm not doing this. And she leaves, but she's like, hey, when you fight Sub-Zero, use the element that brings life. And Liu Kang's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
and then she has like, and then she has like a janitor leave like a bucket of water in the middle of the floor. Like, if I were Sub-Zero, I'd be like, no, fuck that. Like, she's giving him a bucket of water to use against me. Like,
but also he's like, he controls water.
He controls. He's a cryomancer.
Isn't it kind of dumb for him to get killed by water? Shouldn't he get killed by like fire or something?
I don't know, man. It makes no sense.
It seems like if Liu Kang shot that shit at him, I mean, at least like if I was Liu Kang, I would think, oh, but he controls water, so this probably isn't going to do anything. Like, I'm not even going to bother.
Right. The other thing that didn't make sense to me was
the one other thing.
Oh yeah, one of the big things that didn't make sense was the fight with Goro, which I think Goro is fucking awesome. Like, that animatronic puppet, to this day, I still think looks super sick. Like, I think it looks really cool. I'm on board with it.
I think it's cool to see. I think the animatronic practical effects is super cool, but I don't think that it holds up.
I think it's close enough.
It's fun and nostalgic.
I think that's it.
For a movie that came out in '95, like, that's cool.
Yeah, but
it's also like
it's
very frustrating that that character with all that cool like practical effects is in there, and then also Reptile. It was just like garbage CG, like early CG.
It was like 16-bit, like Super Nintendo graphics.
I mean, it looks like a PlayStation cutscene.
I think you're being generous with that. But that fight, so Johnny Cage. We gotta talk about the fights. Yeah, Johnny Cage challenges Goro, and he gets the drop on him. Like, he does like he drops to the ground and punches Goro in the nuts, and Goro's like, oh, and he's like scrambling for like a full minute, and instead of like taking advantage of punching Goro in the nuts, Johnny Cage like scales this like pyramid and like goes through this tunnel that goes to this cliff, and then eventually like pushes Goro off the cliff. It's like, why not just like attack him there and take advantage of like he didn't know that there was a cliff there. Like, when he goes out of the tunnel, he's like, oh shit, like he almost fell off the cliff. Like, what was his plan? Why did he punch why did he challenge him? Why did he run away?
I think some stuff got cut out of the movie there, because I remember feeling like it seems like Johnny Cage has a plan to like trick Goro. And that's kind of, it seems like that when he runs up the stairs, and it kind of makes sense that he wanted to get him into a place where he could use the environment to his advantage. But you're right. He acts like he's surprised that there was a cliff there. So then it's like, okay, so you didn't plan this at all.
No.
It's very uneven. It feels like something's missing, I think, or something got added later.
And I think, so that fight was kind of a disappointment. But I
also,
do like the
nobody follows them, by the way.
No.
Like, there's 100 people watching that fight, including my two favorite guys, the Goro Bros. You know what I'm talking about? There's two guys that at the 2 or 3 Goro fights are always like, there's always a shot of the two of them going, yeah,
his fluffers,
Goro, and they look at each other and they yell Goro again. They're like, yeah, bro.
It's just his entourage. It's like, dude. Turtle and Drama.
Did you know that I've watched Entourage this last week?
Yeah, you put it on your social media a couple times.
All right. Way to ruin my how you doing, bud.
So that fight's whatever. The Scorpion versus Johnny Cage fight is probably the best and worst fight in the movie.
I didn't get to say this earlier, but we were talking about budget, and I think this is a good example of it. Like, I guess there was kind of a small budget, but I feel like it was pretty generous for a video game movie in 1995. And I think a lot of the budget went to, and a lot of the reason that this movie is still memorable is the costumes and the locations. Like, they spent money on building some dope sets. And I think the Johnny Cage and Scorpion fight, which has 2 locations, which is crazy, has 2 of the most like memorable locations from this movie. There's the forest with all the trees that are like lined up perfectly.
Yeah,
and, like,
that's a beautiful scene.
Yeah, it makes for like very aesthetically pleasing shots. And then they get transported to like Scorpion's lair, which is sort of in hell, and there's a bunch of like bamboo scaffolding and shit,
yeah.
and like spider webs, which doesn't really make sense, but like visually it's very fucking cool.
So that was a recut, like a reshoot. So originally, like this movie, they did screen tests and people loved it, but there was a complaint that there wasn't enough action and enough fighting. So the original Scorpion fight ended in the forest, and then they added the hellscape
Oh no
fight.
shit.
And then the reptile fight was the same thing. Like originally there wasn't an actual humanoid reptile that Liu Kang fights. That was added as a reshoot after test screening. So, but that fight, like in the forest, is a little weird. Like you have the get over here, but in the movie, it's like a organic snake-like monster that comes out of his hand. And that was just a straight misunderstanding from Paul W.S. Anderson from the game. Like the game, being a 16-bit game, you can't really see all the detail, but it's supposed to just be a regular kunai that's, on a rope or a chain, but they thought it was like an organic part of him. But the thing seems to be like thousands of feet long. Like Johnny Cage is running from it for like 20 seconds and it's moving around the trees and whatnot.
Yeah, but it's also weird to me that there's a limit on it. Because Johnny Cage like runs around some trees or something and like finally gets backed up against one of the trees, and the thing like hits its end and like can't bite him anymore.
And it's just like snapping at him.
Yeah, and I was like, first of all, how lucky is he, or how did he know that? That seems kind of weird. And then also like this is like a fantastical piece of I don't know. I was gonna say technology, but it's not. It's like it's a completely make-believe thing. So like why is there a limit on it?
Well, and then like Scorpion's like no, and he like retracts the thing back into him, and then he like throws again, and this time like Johnny Cage just ducks, and then it hits the tree and splatters.
Yeah, and then he sucks it back in.
So then they go to like hell or wherever they are, and it's more of a martial arts fight at that point. And then Johnny Cage picks up his shield and like slashes Scorpion's face off, and then like slashes his chest and like wins. But like that fight's probably the coolest one. Yeah, he explodes. Well, there's a point where he rips off his mask and you see the skull, and then he like blows fire.
Fatality.
Yeah, but I think that's probably the coolest fight in the movie.
You know what's weird about this movie is that I think the fights are actually pretty underwhelming. And maybe that's just great. Maybe that's just because it's like, looking at it however many years later, and also all the like great martial art movies that have come to the US in the last 20-30 years. I think at that time, if you were making a Hollywood like martial arts movie that didn't star like Bruce Lee or somebody like some big name, you weren't going to get like real martial arts action.
What's interesting about, like, to your point, Robin Shou, who plays Liu Kang, who has done martial arts movies outside of these ones, he actually had to teach, like, Paul W.S. Anderson kind of like lied about his his resume and like how he can do this. So he mentioned that he's done big budget special effects and CGI. He had never done anything with CGI before. So he just kind of like bluffed his way in. And apparently, like, when they first started shooting this, he was shooting everything in single takes, wide angles. And then Robin Shou would be like, yeah, that's not how you film action scenes. Like, you do short ones so people don't get exhausted, because they would do the entire 2, 3, 4 minute fight scenes. And then he would want to do 2, 3 takes, and the actors would be fucking exhausted. And Robin Shou's like, yeah, that's not how you shoot these movies. So Robin Shou had to teach Paul W.S. Anderson how to shoot action.
Yeah, he's credited as fight choreographer on this, I believe.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
But also, like, they're not great.
I think his fight, like the one with Shang Tsung at the end, is probably the most impressive.
You keep on saying Shang Tsung. I think it's Shang Tsung.
Is it Shang Tsung? I apologize. I'm terrible with pronunciations. Like, so however you pronounce it, that's how you pronounce it. I might be saying it wrong. I'm not going to even try to justify my pronunciation of it. Like, I'm probably wrong. Pronunciation. I'm probably wrong. The Sub-Zero fight is kind of weak.
I think
like when he.
Well, hold on. Just to wrap up that point, though, I know Robin Shou had a lot of input on this, and I know that he's like an accomplished martial artist. So I was surprised that the fights feel very underwhelming.
I think he probably just had to work with the other actors who aren't as good of martial artists. Like, he had to do something that this filmmaker who's never filmed anything like this could shoot and film, and then also actors like Sonya Blade, played by Bridget Wilson. Like, she hadn't done anything like this, so she was filmed. She was the first choice to do this movie, but she started doing Billy Madison and then had to drop out of this one. So they actually cast Cameron Diaz, and then Cameron Diaz broke her wrist during training, so they postponed the movie, and then they were able to get Bridget Wilson back. But you have to deal with all that stuff. So I guess it kind of makes sense. But what's weird is, to your point, he is an accomplished martial artist, and when he fights Sub-Zero, like, the fight's kind of weak, but there's like this weird long ramp in like the throne room.
He just jumps down it.
Yeah, and so Sub-Zero does all these like flips down it, and then Liu Kang was supposed to do the same thing, but Robin Shaw wasn't able to do the choreography, so he just ran down it and jumped once, and like
Yeah, it's like that in the reptile fight too. The reptile fight is a reptile and Liu Kang, and there's a lot of like flashy stuff, and it's not very cool. No, it's not like very visceral.
So like Sub-Zero fight just
the
ends
dude that.
Sorry,
I'm still talking about the fighting. I just also noticed when they do like the demonstration, the taste of things to come, where Sub-Zero kills one of Shang Tsung's like guys for no reason.
Yeah.
That dude like does a whole bunch of kicks and like, you know, does his whole display before they actually fight. Yeah, and he like, that guy kind of rocks, and he's like got a way better like more muscly body than I think anybody else in the movie.
No,
I was like,
absolutely.
why is that guy not one of the fighters?
Right.
And also, why did you kill him? He seems to know what he's doing.
Yeah. And so he just ends up like, like Sub-Zero just freezes that guy and shatters him. And then the Sub-Zero fight with Liu Kang ends with like Sub-Zero's like, instead of doing all the other stuff that he's done before, like we've seen him just instantly freeze somebody before, but this time he's just like, come like dude, like just really charging up this like ice ball, and then Liu Kang just throws a bucket of water, and then it makes a icicle stab him, and like that's the end of Sub-Zero. Like it's really, and it's like
he's making like a freezing force field that's growing, and I think his plan is to eventually entrap Liu Kang and freeze him. But like
maybe.
we've seen you throw a freeze ball. Why don't you just do that again?
Yeah, like it makes no sense. So we already talked about the Goro fight, the bridge.
By the way, that hell fight with Scorpion, Fear Factory is playing on the soundtrack, and that was pretty tight. I was into that.
Yeah, I liked the music in this. It's
fun. This soundtrack was like formative to me. I think this was the first or like the biggest, the most mainstream example. What am I trying to say? It was like a mainstream introduction to electronic music.
Yeah, it was like the first EDM song to go platinum in America.
Yeah, and like I just remember discovering a bunch of cool like electronic bands from this, like KMFDM and stuff.
Yeah, like there's a song towards the end, like in one of the other fights, that sounds like it was in The Matrix. Like I'm sure there's some overlap on the soundtrack of this movie and The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
But just so we can start getting through this, like the Kano fight versus Sonya Blades wasn't very interesting. It was just a few punches, then she wraps her legs around him and snaps his neck. Yeah. And then you really get to the climax, and like I think the Liu Kang Shang Tsung fight. Did I say it right that time? No, what is it? What did you say it was?
I'm not going to keep on correcting you. I'm not going to die on that hill, because who knows if I'm saying it right. It's a couple.
Well, what did you say though? I just want to hear it again.
I grew up saying Shang Tsung, and in the new movie, one of the dudes says Shang Tsung.
Okay, so Shang Tsung. Let's just pick one and go with it. So
I like Shang Tsung.
Okay, so we're gonna say Shang Tsung.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Very
so
good.
That fight is probably the best martial arts fight, but it's still really just them going up some stairs, and then Liu Kang ends up like kicking him onto some spikes.
Yeah, that whole final fight was very underwhelming, and even though the set clearly cost some money, it feels very small and low budget.
Yeah, I agree. And then like he wins the day, he solves everything, and then they go back to Earth, and then Shao Kahn just shows up and like, I'm invading, and then Raiden ends the movie with, I don't think so, again.
I was okay with that. That's like a cool cliffhanger.
Yeah, it is. It's just funny how many times.
And then the music kicks in, and it's just like, yeah, give me the sequel.
Yeah, it definitely pumps you up for that. And like, you mentioned it, like Raiden's kind of an absentee coach, absentee father. Like he has like towards the end of the movie, he has this little like take
he
a knee.
Is in the new one too.
Yeah,
that's a good Easter egg from the original movie. In the new one, is that Raiden doesn't do shit.
Yeah, but yeah, he just kind of like at one point is like, take a knee, team. Like, Johnny Cage, you're just too gung ho. Like, you just need to like slow your roll a little bit.
He explains all of their arcs to them.
Yeah, Liu
no
Kang,
subtext.
You just need to recognize you are the chosen one and stop being a bitch. Sonya Blade, you already kind of like did what you came here to do. So like, maybe ask for help. I don't know. And like, that's kind of the movie.
Yeah. And then at the end, he just kind of does like a Dom Toretto. He's like, well, we're a family now. So
family. So one of the things that is nice about Christopher Lambert being in this movie was he's obviously like the biggest name in the movie at the time. And he was only supposed to be doing the actual face shots, and like any wide shot of him was supposed to be somebody else. And he's like, no, it'll be better if it's just me. And so apparently his agent was pissed because he ended up going to Thailand for a month, even though he's barely in the movie. And he paid for the wrap party, and he also like apparently paid for some of the reshoots or some shit like that. So you know, he was a team player, and then he's
sort of the Raiden of the set.
So yeah, overall it's a fun movie though. Like, I had a blast watching it. Like it.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
I think as I mean, maybe you're less of a fan of the game, so you have a different perspective on it. But as a fan of the game, as a 10-year-old and as a 6-year-old, I think it's a lot of fun. It's like clearly flawed. It's not a flawless victory, but but it's a lot of fun.
Jean-Claude Van Damme was asked to be Johnny Cage, and Johnny Cage was
it was based on him.
Yeah, and then he went to do Guile in Street Fighter instead.
Yeah, he was supposed to be like he was supposed to be Johnny Cage in the game in 1992 in the first game. They're going to base it around him, and he decided not to do it.
Yeah,
it's funny that Street Fighter came out the next year in 94, I think, or no, the year before.
Yeah,
this is 95. Yeah. It's funny that he ended up doing that, and that is also like a weirdly bad but enjoyable, but not as enjoyable.
I like that movie better than this one.
I like this one better, but I think Raul Julia's performance in Street Fighter is probably better than anything in this.
Oh, for sure. Except for Hiroki Tagawa, like, he is fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
He's so scary, and
he's my favorite part of this movie.
Yeah. The only thing that I thought was kind of wonky with him was when they're on the boat, like that decrepit boat going to the island. There's like Voldemort's dark mark flies in the sky, like there's a skull with a snake flying through it. Yeah. And Raiden's like, so it begins, and then like Xing Zhang is like, so it begins. And it's just like,
he says it has begun.
The same line. Yeah, they said the same line back to back, looking at the dark mark in the sky, and it's just silly. There's
a similar thing to that. In the middle of the movie, Raiden like tells Liu Kang what one of the rules is, and then is like, "I have nothing left to teach you," and just walks away. There's a lot of like non sequiturs or like redundant pieces of dialogue.
Yeah. All right, man. I think we've the only other one other thing that I laughed, because like the director of the Johnny Cage movie at the beginning of the movie,
Steven Spielberg.
I was like, it looks like Steven Spielberg, and apparently Steven Spielberg was supposed to do the cameo and couldn't, so they just hired somebody who looks like him.
They got Esteban Spielbergo.
It was pretty funny. But
I have a few notes if you want to blast through them really quick.
Yeah, blast them. Just blast me, buddy.
Change the camera angle again. I didn't realize that there's like a scene in the trailer for the new one where Sub-Zero freezes Jax's gun and like looks at the bullets and then punches the shit out of him. That scene is in the original movie too. That's a little callback. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about Raiden's voice. His voice is ridiculous.
But Christopher Lambert.
Yeah, I love it, man. He's like, as much as Cary Hiroki Tagawa, he's like chewing scenery.
Yeah. I mean, he's Duncan MacLeod. Not Duncan. Connor. He's Connor MacLeod. Duncan's the TV show.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Highlander.
Oh, yeah. Why does Sonya care about that dude Art dying? She'd met him like a day ago.
Why do any of them care about him?
Well, Johnny Cage knows who he is. Like, they had a conversation. They like had met before or something. But nobody else knows who he is. Like, why do they give a shit?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
And also, like, I remember seeing that movie and seeing him in the gray... I don't know what you call it. It's not like a gi. It's like a sleeveless gi, I guess. It's what the ninjas in the original game wear.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
the shoulders. He's in like a gray one, and I was like, oh, that's Smoke. They're gonna make him Smoke, like one of the other ninjas. That's tight. And then it never happened. So
nope.
I remember being very disappointed by that. I watched this right after I saw that movie Nobody that just came out.
Oh, so fucking good.
It was like a whiplash, seeing the fight scenes in this, and then right after watching Nobody, which has like, John Wick level fights.
Oh, for sure.
They're just like super impressive, super visceral, brutal. Can you explain to me the reptile transformation?
I can't.
There's this like little CG creature that's like it's like the size of a cat, but it's like a reptile, and he's invisible most of the time.
It looks like the gecko from those video games from the PlayStation. Like Gex. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And it's like following them around for half the movie. And then it appears, and like Liu Kang like grabs him and throws him into a statue in Outworld, and then it becomes the statue, and even has like the same faceplate, right? Yeah. And they have a really bad fight, and then he throws him through a wall and kills him, and then the statue, he like reverts back into the statue, and then there's like insects inside, but he's a reptile.
Yeah, that made no sense.
Why aren't there like snakes inside?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
He's not called Insect.
It made no sense. All right, so.
I was also just going to say, Sonya looked like she was a Motley Crue roadie at the end. And the music on this movie was, like all the guitar parts and shit, was recorded by Buckethead, which I didn't know until the other day.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
All right, man. Let's just blast through. What have you been up to, bud, since we got a whole nother movie to talk about?
Fucking Entourage, dude. I watched the entire series of Entourage.
You watched the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, that's 5 seasons.
It's 8 seasons.
It's 8 seasons?
Yeah, I thought it was only like 5 too.
We watched it last year, like right around the time you and I started recording together. We started watching that and then watched the movie.
Okay, so we don't have a whole lot of time to. I'm going to watch it tonight. I have to. We obviously can't like get into it, but I was surprised at how well parts of it held up. I expected it to be dated and problematic as fuck, which it is. But there's a lot of beats that I think it's overall, I still feel like it's pretty enjoyable. Maybe that's like
really
living in LA.
Watching it last year.
Yeah.
It's super weird watching it now that I live in LA, because it's like there's still like it's super true. Like there's nothing about it that isn't true. Like that's how people are out here. It's fucking weird.
And they also like predicted a bunch of movies that were going to happen. Like I think Aquaman was kind of an obvious one. But they predicted Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple other ones too.
Mandolin, like because we got
Medellin?
like in Medellin, yeah, we got that, and then because we had the Netflix series and everything. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was crazy how accurate it is in its satire and predictions of the industry.
Yeah, I agree, and just, Jeremy Piven's great in it.
He's so good, man, and he gets like some he gets a lot of more emotional, like substantial stuff to do in the later seasons.
Yeah.
With his wife leaving him and stuff. And like, obviously the whole show is about, these guys being like, super misogynistic and like, and problematic and stuff. But I think they made an effort to have some, comeuppance in the end. And I guess it gets undercut, but the last couple seasons are very aware of like the indulgent lifestyles and trying to say like, yeah, there are consequences to these things.
Yeah, for sure. Like all the directors who hate him by the end of the series.
Yeah,
don't want to work with him.
Yeah, like the 7th season is pretty weirdly dark. Like one of Vince goes to rehab, and one of the guys that he had previously almost worked with was another addict who ends up killing himself. And I was like, wow, that's like not why I watched this show. But
no, man. Yeah,
that's the thing that happens.
Dark. He fucks Sasha Grey and then ruins his life.
He goes on a bender with her.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. It's weird because she's a real person, and like
it's crazy because like they are still like calling women sluts in the last season, and it's like, yo, you have fucked more people than any of these women. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's dumb. Gal Gadot's in it. Like she's one of the people he like fucks early on in the series.
Oh, I didn't remember her there. I didn't see her.
She's just in like one of the scenes like in a limo like with him.
Tight.
Like, really early Gal Gadot.
So what else? I watched the finale of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I thought was just fine. Zack and
Yeah.
Miri Make a Porno, which was better than I expected.
Oh, I
And
hate that movie.
weirdly, I hadn't seen it. Like I've seen every Kevin Smith movie, but not that one or Yoga Hosers. Nobody, which was great. I rewatched
Oh,
Beverly Hills Ninja because
Robin Shaw.
we watched. Right, not good at all.
No, that movie does not hold up. I watched that like 2 or 3 years ago and hated
Yeah,
myself for watching it.
I think Mortal Kombat Annihilation and Beverly Hills Ninja are the reason that Robin Shaw did not have a career in Hollywood past
Yeah,
that.
unfortunately, I think you're right.
I looked him up, by the way. He looks great. He's like 60 something years old. He looks fantastic.
He looks like he's like 40.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's incredible.
Oh, I don't
shape.
know
Good
if
for him.
I don't know if I mentioned this on the last one, but I watched an independent horror movie called Slacks that was pretty good.
No, you didn't mention that.
Yeah, SLAXX. It's about a sentient pair of pants that kills people, but it's also about I have to like pick my words for it. Anyway, Slacks is good. It's about underpaid, underrepresented labor in foreign countries and fast fashion, and it's got a really good substantial hook that I don't want to
Nice.
ruin.
Sounds funny.
Worth watching. It's on Shudder.
Shudder.
Hey Shudder.
Give us some memberships and we'll plug you.
Yeah.
All right, you,
That's
you
it.
good? Because I was shocked on
That's
what I got through. So same thing. Watched Falcon Winter Soldier and Invincible. I
Invincible,
watched
yeah.
Boss Level on Hulu, which is that it's the bad guy's Mel Gibson, and then the good guy is I'm blanking on his name. He plays Crossbones in the Marvel
Frank
movies.
Grillo.
Thank you, Frank Grillo. Yeah.
Fuck Mel Gibson.
It's another take on Groundhog Day. He's just like, you don't really know what he is. He's like either some like ex-forces guy or whatever, but he just keeps reliving the same day because people are trying to kill him. And if you saw the trailer, you saw the movie. Like all the best shit in the trailer, or all the best shit in the movies in the trailer. Like it really wasn't worth watching.
I have zero interest in any Mel Gibson movies. After
I forgot he
1995.
was in it when I decided to watch it because I like Frank Grillo. At least I thought I did, and it wasn't very good. I rewatched Knives Out, which was really fun.
Oh yeah,
It's
the
a good
best.
movie. Yeah, and
It's
then
fantastic.
I started Twin Peaks, and it's I'm like 4 or 5 episodes in, and it's fucking weird. I've never watched it before. But
Oh
I'm
no
really
shit.
enjoying Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it's gonna get better and then much worse.
That's what I hear, but I'm really excited about it.
Let me know when you get to the 3rd season because I'm kind of interested in revisiting that.
Okay, I will. Yeah, but we're like 5 episodes in. Like we're the that all the teenagers are like 30 years old in that show, and they're supposed to be in high school. But the one who's like the hotel owner's daughter, who's like in love with Cooper, like she just started like following him around. So I'm very very early in. But yeah, I'm ready to talk about 2021. You want to summarize that bitch for me?
Yeah, man. Past his prime MMA fighter Cole Young is unaware of his heritage or why Outworld's Emperor Shang Tsung has sent his best warrior Sub-Zero to hunt him down. Cole partners with Sonya Blade, Jax Kano, and warriors Liu Kang and Kung Lao to stand against the enemies of Outworld in an attempt to defeat Earthrealm before the upcoming Mortal Kombat tournament.
Yeah. So this one's like a prequel movie. Like it's rough calling it Mortal Kombat. Like it has all the Mortal Kombat elements. It has fatalities. It has all that
it's
stuff.
not, I wouldn't call it a prequel movie. It is a reinterpretation of the story that starts a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's not connected in any way. It's not a stealth reboot or whatever
Right.
of the original movie. Like they are not connected.
Yeah. I like it's like a prequel to a tournament or a prequel to what we thought we were going to get, I think. Like
I think, I rewatched it very quickly. I sort of skipped through it right before we hopped on. And I think that makes sense. And for other reasons that we've talked about with like the limited budget and the reintroduction to this property, to this franchise, I think they wanted to save a lot of stuff, including like Johnny Cage for the second movie. So it kind of makes sense to me that the next movie is going to be like, they gave themselves room to go bigger.
And I both like and hate that, and we'll talk about it at the end. Well, it's really hinges on what you talked about, like Raiden being an absentee kind of father, coach, mentor, because I think that fundamentally breaks the movie at the end. But I'm going to say this at the top of the movie, the us talking about it. I had a lot of fun with this movie. It's
Yeah,
not a good movie. I'm
I
going to
really
say it at the
enjoyed
front. It's not a good movie, but I had fun with it. I watched it twice. I watched it in theaters on Friday, and then I watched it yesterday. Uh, I intended just to kind of skip around, but I ended up just watching it straight through, and like I actually noticed a lot of things the second time that I didn't notice the first time, and I
Yeah,
enjoyed it even more so.
I would have watched it straight through today, and I started a little later than I meant to, so I was just pressed for time. But it's
Yeah.
like, I think it's very rewatchable.
Oh, for sure.
And I think it's like not a good movie in the classic sense, but is infinitely better than the original one, and absolutely better than Annihilation. Like,
oh, for sure, hands down.
It feels like a legit movie. Just you have to go in with
we should address the elephant in the room at the beginning, the Cole Young character. So that was one of the few things that Warner Brothers told the director and writer that they needed to have, is they wanted an original character to be the star of this movie. And you brought it up, when we were talking, that it makes sense to have that. Yeah. So, say your piece on that, like why you thought it makes sense to have a unique character.
An original character, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, as far as like getting this movie made, what were we just talking about? The budget and like setting it early on, having like a slightly smaller scope. The realities of getting a movie made in Hollywood in 2021 or whatever, like people don't, there's not a huge push or a huge demand for a Mortal Kombat movie. So I think you've got to make some concessions. Like, right. You're not going to be able to come out of the gate and make a huge Mortal Kombat movie. I think you need to draw people back into the property, and a couple of the ways to do that are what we've just talked about. Is lowering the stakes a little bit and making it impressive for what you choose where you choose to set the movie and the stakes that you choose to give it, and also having a relatable protagonist that can is new and can sort of reinvigorate some attention in people that know the franchise, and also someone that's a little bit more relatable, that is like the audience surrogate character.
Yeah, the point of view character.
Yeah, he's more human. He's more like us, and he's learning about the world as we're learning about it. That's trope as old as time.
Yeah, and just to address it, like,
and also, sorry, one more thing. This movie like goes hard sci-fi right out of the gate. They're we're in Outworld now. That's just a thing that exists. We're not going to bother explaining it very much. Like, this is just a movie where people have superpowers and there's another realm. So yeah, it makes sense to have an audience surrogate character that can help like explain this stuff.
This movie's all background lore. Like, the tournament is not in this movie. Like, that's being set up for, who knows?
They keep on talking about it.
That might not even be the second movie based off how this movie ends. That might be the third movie.
Yeah, I think if I was outlining this, or if I had to guess at how they're outlining it, I think the tournament is the next movie. And then I think, in the lore of the video games, they lose the final tournament. In this movie and also in the video games, Mortal Kombat happens with all these characters, because the Outworld has won 9 Mortal Kombat tournaments in a row, and they need to win one more to invade Earthrealm, right? So Liu Kang wins, or whoever, in the game it's Liu Kang, but whoever wins, and prevents them from winning the 10th one in a row that allows them to invade. But Shao Kahn, the emperor of Outworld, says, fuck that, I'm going to invade anyway. And then it becomes more of a war and less like a tournament that's deciding fate. So I think this movie is sort of leading up to the tournament. And then I think the second movie would be the tournament that they end up winning. And then Shao Kahn is like, fuck that, I'm coming in. Just like the ending of this, the original. And then I think the third movie is like a war movie where Outworld is invading Earthrealm.
Yeah. Because I know like the original lore was they're allowed to invade if they win 10. And I know in like the rebooted game lore, it's you just can't merge the realms unless you've won 10. You can invade, but you can't merge. And so there's that weird kind of gray area. But yeah, this movie is really just gathering the crew who are going to be representing Earth. It's like the first 20 minutes of like a Mighty Ducks movie, like the second Mighty Ducks movie, getting the team together kind of thing, or, really any sports movie, like the Replacements or Dodgeball or whatever, like gathering the team and getting them ready for the tournament. It's like the whole movie
and
is like the opening
making them a
act of
family.
Movie. What was that?
Yeah, and like get them to work together as a crew or a
Yeah.
family or the
So
Avengers.
just to like the acting is all over the place in this movie. Like some of the people are really good, some of them are bad, and unfortunately our lead, Cole Young, played by Louis Tan, I think he's really bad. I don't think he's charismatic. I don't think he's a good actor, at least with the material he's given.
Luckily, he is like Liu Kang in the original movie. He's part of an ensemble, and he's got plenty of people that are pretty good to back him up.
Yeah, because I think Sonya Blade was fantastic.
I think it's okay for this movie that he's not fantastic, and I think we talked about this. I think what's going to happen is in the second movie, he's going to take a back seat, and they're going to let somebody else sort of be the main protagonist.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll have to be based off, if they go with the lore at all, it's going to have to be, they're eventually going to have to prop up Liu Kang and have Liu Kang start being the driving force eventually.
Ludi Lin.
Yeah.
I think that Louis Tan is as good as he needed to be, but he's like achieving the bare minimum.
Yeah. He's giving like a C- level of acting. But I think
he's definitely not elevating.
Jessica McNamee, I don't know how to pronounce Jessica McNamee as Sonya Blade. I thought she was great. I thought she was fun. I think the person who stole the show was Josh Lawson as Kano.
Yeah, Kano. He's fucking amazing.
And also Cabal. I thought Cabal was really fun.
He was really good. That's the dude that's Charles Manson in Mindhunter, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Kano, I don't think he carried the movie, but he was so good as the comic relief.
He stole every scene he was in.
He just kept the movie going. Like he's pushing it. He's pushing the momentum the whole way. I think Joe Taslim as Sub-Zero was fucking good. He's so good. He's so menacing, and the director Simon McQuaid did such a good job of making him an intimidating character.
He
shoots, at least in the beginning, but kind of throughout the movie, he shoots Sub-Zero's scenes like horror movies or like a horror movie.
For sure.
He's pretty terrifying.
The angles, the darkness, him disappearing and reappearing, him stalking people. Like there's towards the end of the movie, there's a scene where he's like stalking Cole's family, and like they're like packing their bags, and then like the camera pans around, and he's just like lurking outside the glass window, and it's like fogging up. Like no, he is shot like a Mike Myers kind of killer. Like it was very effective.
And the dude, the actor Joe Taslim, I think is the best martial artist in the movie.
Apparently, they were saying some of the other actors were saying. So the actor who plays Jax, who I didn't notate his name,
Makad Brooks.
Yeah, him, and then also Louis Tan mentioned that they had to actually slow him down. Like they had to ask him to slow down, like he was too fast for the other actors to keep up, and too fast for the camera to really keep track of his movements.
Yeah, and you see that on film. Like the scene where I just mentioned where he's fighting Jax, he like freezes the gun and kind of looks at it like in a really, menacing, like cool, creepy way. And then he like punches the gun and shatters it because it's frozen. But just that like little uppercut that he does is like the blink of an eye. It's so fast.
It's so fast. It's really hard to track him. Like I wouldn't want to fight him.
Yeah, he's really good. And I think the guy that plays Scorpion, Hiroyuki Sanada, is fantastic as well. He just doesn't get as much to do.
Yeah, he's very underutilized. I was really excited when they cast him, and he just kind of bookends the movie.
I feel like that guy, I can't, maybe while I'm talking, you can find some stuff that he's been in. He's very recognizable.
He's in Westworld.
Been in a bunch of stuff.
He's the main samurai guy in Westworld.
He's in some features too. Isn't he the guy that Jeremy Renner kills in Endgame?
Yep, that's him too. Yeah, he's in a lot.
Yeah, I feel like he's a guy that you cast and then you plan on using him in future movies.
I hope so. I
hope they bring back Joe Taslim. I'm really bummed that Sub-Zero's
gone.
Joe
Taslim signed on. He has said that he's signed on for 5 movies, so 4 more. And if you know Mortal Kombat lore, he comes back as New Cybot, or maybe they just bring him back as Sub-Zero in another way, because spoiler alert for this movie, at the end of the movie the heroes win and they kill basically everybody, and Shang Tsung says, yeah, death is just the beginning for my crew. Like it's just another
portal.
Yeah,
and when he's I made a note of that. When he says that, they specifically focus on Sub-Zero and Goro.
Yeah.
And there's like a black smoke effect that Shang Tsung uses when he teleports or whatever. that feels very noob Saibot-y.
Yeah.
As far as Sub-Zero goes.
Also,
and Sub-Zero also like pulled off his armor and stuff and it's like all black.
Yeah.
He resembled that character.
Yeah, that's definitely teased for another one. So
yeah.
This plot is very bare bones. Like really all it comes down to is you see Cole is a cage fighter losing, and then Jack shows up and saves him from Sub-Zero, and he's like, go find Sonya Blade. And Sonya Blade already has Kano with her. And then they get attacked by Reptile, and we'll talk about the fights in a minute. And then they just go to Raiden's temple, and like Liu Kang and Kung Lao are already there, and they just kind of neg everybody until they develop their superpowers. And
well, they do that to Kano very pointedly, very purposefully.
They're just kind of dicks to everybody. Like they're constantly like they're just like
no, I don't think so.
No, they're even more so with Kano, where they just go like really pick him apart.
Raiden is a dick.
Yeah. Even with Cole, they're like, you don't have time to be this shitty. Like, get good fast. And then, like...
All right, they do say that's true.
Yeah, and then with Sonya Blade, like, you don't have the dragon tattoo. Like, you don't matter. Like, everybody's kind of a shitty to, like, Sonya Blade. Like, Melina shows up, like, you don't have the tattoo. You're not even worth fucking killing. Kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
it seems like a mistake on her part.
It seems like a mistake on everybody's part, underestimating
Hey,
Sonya
we probably should have said these are, like, major spoilers for this movie.
Yeah, I did. I said spoilers.
Okay.
But yeah, so like essentially what ends up happening is like Kano, of course, being a bad guy, turns on everybody, and really the only thing that Raiden did is a couple things. These are the three things that Raiden did in the entire movie. When they show up to his temple, he's kind of like, "You guys fucking suck, and you need to get good."
Why weren't you looking for these people for the last 10 years?
That's my biggest flaw with this movie. So he puts up a force field so they can train, and they say they have less than 30 days before Mortal Kombat is going to start.
Mm-hmm.
And so he puts up the force field, and then the next thing he does is after the force field comes down because Kano turns on them, he fucking doxes Cole to Sub-Zero. He's like, "Hey, Sub-Zero, fucking Scorpion's bloodline still exists. That's right. This is Scorpion's great-great-great-great-grandson." And so it's like Sub-Zero is like, "Oh, hell no." And then goes and abducts Cole's family.
Yeah, that was your secret weapon. Why did you give that away?
Right. And then at the end of the movie, after they kill everybody, and then unfortunately Kung Lao dies, and we'll get into that stuff. But at the end of the movie, Raiden's like, "I'm just going to come up with a new roster of heroes, and you guys are going to go recruit these people. We're going to do the same plot of this movie. We're going to do it again in the next movie."
But with even less time.
Yeah. And it's like, wait, if he could just do that, like, why couldn't he just create more fighters? And also,
why? Like, it's not really clear what he did with Scorpion's daughter 300 years ago. No. What have you been doing with that bloodline this whole time?
You just let it fucking rot on the vine.
Was it clear to you? He said that I took Scorpion's daughter and put her in a place where Shang Tsung would never find her, or Bi-Han or whoever.
Yeah.
Was it clear to you where he kept the family, where they kept the bloodline?
Nope.
It seemed like it was, when I was watching it the first time, it seemed like it was in his in Raiden's temple.
That's what I thought too.
But then, like, why did they leave?
Yeah.
Why wasn't they there the whole time?
It would make more sense if they made a twist and they made it like Liu Kang was actually Scorpion's descendant, because he's like the chosen one in like all the other versions. And
I'm glad they didn't do that.
I'm glad they didn't, but like Liu Kang in this movie has been like training his whole life. Like he's known about Mortal Kombat his whole life, and he's been training for it. And same thing with Kung Lao. But then even they are like, "Oh, we've been tasked to go find everybody, but by the time we found Jack, it was too late." Like, why are you guys waiting until less than a month before the events?
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were trying to find anybody.
No.
Because it was just the two of them in that temple.
Yeah, and then at the end of the movie...
Sonya Blade did all the work.
Yeah, and then at the end of the movie, Raiden's like, "Oh, I'll just create a new list and you guys go and recruit him." It's like, why couldn't you do this before? Like, what have you been doing? And the whole movie, like, every time Raiden pops up, he's just like, "Oh, this is what I've got to work with? Oh, you guys suck." And it's like, dude, you need to do your job.
The actor that they got for this Raiden, I'm sure they'll build him out in future movies. I know he's like kind of a Nick Fury role, but he was not as charismatic or fun as Christopher Lambert.
No,
so it's kind of a letdown.
He did nothing, and it's
weird because he has kind of the same attitude too. He takes some pot shots at our heroes and like kind of laughs at himself. Like it feels similar to the Christopher Lambert one. Yeah. Less of it.
Yeah, and it just like, because this movie is so much darker and like the stakes. So like basically the plot of this movie is like they're the Outworld guys are cheating and trying to kill all the champions, so that way a Mortal Kombat can't actually happen and they just win by default. And like the stakes are really
I like
high.
that. I think that's an interesting idea. I like that element of doing it as a precursor to the tournament.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Like
we have this scheme where we're going to make it so that the tournament doesn't even happen. I think that's cool.
I think it's great. It's just like, well, Raiden, what the fuck are you doing to make sure this isn't happening? And honestly,
he seems completely unprepared.
Yeah. And so like one of the things that I thought was going to happen the whole movie, because like the whole second half of the movie is them learning about their arcana, which is like their magic powers. Like anybody who has the dragon tattoo is chosen and they get magic powers. I have
mixed feelings about those.
I have very mixed feelings about it too. And I especially have mixed feelings the fact that like 2 of the 3 people who develop power, or I guess 3 out of the 4 people who develop powers in this movie, like spend most of their time learning and becoming better people or better versions of themselves so they can get their powers. And Sonya Blade just immediately has her powers when she kills Kano and gets his mark.
Yeah, you're right. I like that they justified every character being... They made it so that every character is sort of equally matched in some way. So it's not just humans fighting aliens with superpowers. So it feels like a more level playing field. I think that's cool. And I understand why they wanted to give everyone superpowers, because this kind of becomes like a little bit less of a martial arts movie and a little bit more of a superhero movie.
It's Power Rangers. It's the Power Rangers movie from a few years ago. Yeah,
exactly. And like, I understand why that's happening. And I like I said, I like elements of that, but it also feels like, all right, so it's Mortal Kombat Avengers. Like it's,
and you're right. Like, so what really starts Sonya Blade getting everybody, she mentions like, we were on a mission in Brazil. We were supposed to bring in this like fugitive, and he had superpowers and took out my entire team. And then Jax snuck up and killed him. And then all of a sudden Jax has this tattoo in Mortal Kombat. And then I investigated the tattoo and found out about Mortal Kombat. So like Sonya Blades is also kind of the Nick Fury character as well. But you're right. Like it's just like Power Rangers / Mortal Kombat kind of merged. Like it's interesting, but there's all these like unique little ideas, but it also kind of like, there's all these other weird things like Scorpion is now 500 or 600 years old, and there's no explanation to that other than he probably got powers from Shang Tsung.
Well, he had an Arcana, so like that's the explanation. They'll have the tattoo or the mark that gives them powers.
Right. No, but I mean like he's 500 years old, where nobody else.
Well, he's been in hell, and Sub-Zero is 500 years old.
That's what I meant. Sub-Zero
300.
Yeah, it was like 1497 or whatever when it started. Like it's.
I think it was 17 something.
Oh, okay. Either way, he's still hundreds of years old, kind of thing. So it's like there's all these weird little elements that don't really.
That doesn't bother me that much.
It doesn't bother me that much. It's just like nothing is explained in a movie that's nothing but backstory.
It's also like not clear how long he's been allied with Shang Tsung. I saw in the notes it says that he's been working with him for hundreds of years, but I think, in this movie, the first scene that he has with Shang Tsung feels more like an introduction between the 2 characters. It feels like Shang Tsung has sort of recruited him somehow.
Yeah, because he has that line like he calls him by hand, and then he's like, "Yeah, I am Sub-Zero now," kind of thing. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's all for a movie that's nothing but backstory. There's a lot of things that they just hand wave and don't really explain.
It feels a lot like the DC movies, where they just want to jump straight to combining all of these characters. They want to get right to the Avengers movie, right to Justice League. And there's like not a lot of backstory, but this movie does have some of the backstory, but it still feels kind of awkward that we're like throwing all these characters that we don't know anything about together and sort of figuring stuff out.
It's also weird because it kind of like blows its load with a lot of characters. So like they made a big point, like we don't want to use Johnny Cage because we want to save some characters, but we get Sub-Zero, we get Goro.
Well, but Sub-Zero, you're right, and I'm going to disagree about Sub-Zero because Sub-Zero gets a lot of the movie dedicated to him, so we get like the whole Sub-Zero story. I think there's a little bit more there, but a lot of the movie focuses on Sub-Zero.
But like Goro,
but now Goro's dead, Melina's dead, Kung Lao is dead. The
Goro one was really disappointing too, because it's like the other thing that frustrated me about Cole loses every fight in this movie. Every fight until he gets to Goro, and then he just gets his superpowers, and his superpowers are really unexplained. Like he gets like this golden armor, and then he also can like summon these like knife blade things, and then he like kills Goro, who's supposed to be like the reigning champion.
The way the movie, it felt like the movie was explaining his powers my first go around was that his power is that he's like the rope wrapped around Scorpion's harpoon.
Right. So at first, so what I thought was,
which makes no sense, but that's what I thought the movie was telling me. So
for a little bit, what I thought was maybe going to happen, because in the trailers you never actually see Scorpion with anybody. So I thought maybe what was going to happen was like he gets his powers initially, and he was going to turn into Scorpion and have that like the destiny was he becomes Scorpion. So I thought like maybe like that gold armor he was wearing is just like the first layer of like the costume. And then I thought like at the end of the movie he like uses the kunai and he gets his blood on it and then it summons Scorpion. But I thought like when he gets his blood on the blade, it like wraps around and burns and everything. So I thought at first I'm like, oh, he's gonna like get possessed by Scorpion or whatever, maybe have like a symbiotic relationship with Scorpion or something. I thought that would have been kind of interesting. And then Scorpion just gets summoned. And he still only speaks Japanese except for the phrase, "Get over here," and "I am Scorpion."
He doesn't say "I'm Scorpion."
Yeah, he did.
He says it in Japanese.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay. I thought I could. I think he said "I am" in Japanese, but says "Scorpion" in English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that happens though. Like sometimes if there's
there's not a good translation
of an English word, or if it's somebody's name, I think.
Yeah. So that was a little odd, but like that.
I feel like they didn't pay off. I like that they put thought into the characters and where the clans are from in the beginning.
Yeah.
So like Scorpion's clan, his family and his village or whatever are all Japanese, so they speak Japanese. And then Sub-Zero's or Bihan's people are Chinese, and it says like they're speaking Japanese or they're speaking Chinese. Yeah. And there's like a point where Bihan is speaking Chinese to Scorpion, what's his name originally, Hanzo, and he like doesn't understand him,
and he says it like, I don't understand your words, but I'm gonna fuck you up.
And I thought that was really interesting, but then like it didn't pay off in a meaningful way. And I think, like you said, it actually created a problem later in the movie where he says they are speaking to each other again in opposite languages, and also he says something in English for no reason, and it's like, why did you even bother making like pointing out that this was weird to us, to the audience?
Yeah, well, because like even so eventually like the crux of the movie is Cole and Scorpion team up and they defeat Sub-Zero, and then like Scorpion realizes this is his great grandson, and he's just like, take care of my bloodline, poof, and like disappears back to hell after doing his fatality where he rips off his mask and blows fire on Sub-Zero, which was pretty fucking cool.
I think it might have been cool if Cole in this movie or maybe in the next movie takes on like Scorpion's mantle, but he like looks like the younger Scorpion.
I'd be totally cool with that.
Like a simple yellow outfit as opposed to like the crazy thing that he was wearing in this movie.
I think that would be interesting if he did take that on, because like his powers are super weird. Like it was kind of like Black Panther's vibranium suit.
Sorry, I was just thinking, and we're also going to get a different Sub-Zero, because in the games, Bihan is the original Sub-Zero, and then he becomes Noob Saibot,
and his brother comes in.
We get his younger brother, who still wears the blue of the Lin Kui. So maybe like there could be a thing in the next movie where Sub-Zero's younger brother and Cole sort of work together, even though their families used to be opposed to each other. And then they could also have sort of matching outfits that are different colors. That's like a reference to the original
video games, because everyone's just reskinned. It's just different colors.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think that'd be cool.
One of the things, and we should start wrapping up, and I kind of wanted to save this portion for just talking about the fights, but one of the big selling points of this movie was that it was supposed to be video game accurate, having fatalities, being a little bit more gory. And I gotta say, I was honestly...
Quite a bit more gory.
Yeah. Oh, it's quite a bit more gory, but I gotta say, like, I was a little underwhelmed. Like, a lot of this stuff was in the trailer. Like, you see the Jax destroying Raiko's head in the trailer, in the Red Band trailer. Kind of thing, and you see
they do the clap, but they don't show the aftermath of his head.
Oh, there's a Red Band trailer you saw. I had seen that, and I'd also see they released the first 7 minutes of the movie last week, so I actually saw the opening fight before.
Yeah,
so they released a lot of stuff in this. The Kung Lao fight was pretty cool though when he takes on the.
Listen, I think that paid off for them though, because we didn't talk about how much money this movie's made.
Yeah, so
it's doing very well.
Yeah, so it's already made its budget back internationally. So it's made about $50 million already, and its budget was anywhere from 50 to 55.
During a pandemic when it's released on HBO and people aren't going to theaters.
And it's rated R.
Yeah.
Hard
it's
R.
Crazy that it's made this amount of money.
Yeah, so it's guaranteed to get a sequel. So the fights are really, like, I don't want to like really spoil all the fights, but like Liu Kang gets his fatality. Kung Lao gets his flawless victory, and he uses his hat like a table saw and like kills somebody. And
it's actually a flawless victory.
That bothered me in the first movie when they said flawless victory on one. It's like that guy got hit like 10 times. But it's definitely gorier. But I honestly was expecting more with how much Simon McQuoid was like hyping this up. Like it's one of the most violent movies you've ever seen, and it's one of the goriest movies you've ever seen. I honestly didn't. I thought it was a lot tamer than I expected it to be.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because you and I watch more horror movies and more like art house horror movies that really get into, or not. Sorry, art house is not the right word. But more like niche horror movies that get really gory. Yeah,
we have lately. I'm not into like those gory films, but like I was honestly like, this really wasn't bad, like at all.
But like to like a mainstream audience, that's much gorier than an R movie usually.
Yeah,
is.
That's fair, and especially for like a video game movie. It was weird in my theater. There were kids in it, and I was like, why the fuck are there kids in this movie? Like little kids.
Yeah.
I did almost like Mortal Kombat a dude in the theater though. This was like the first bad theater experience I've had in a little while. I was somebody sat next to me who shouldn't have been sitting next to me. Like they were in the area that should have been marked off, but they sat next to me. And so there's a sign at the theater that I went to that's like, hey, once the movie starts, like by all means move to a different seat, just be socially distant. So like once the movie started, like we got through the credits, I went and moved to another row. Like I just moved down a row, and it was fine. And then no joke, more than halfway through the movie, like after Kano already got his powers, this guy walks up to me. He's like, I think you're in my seat. And I'm like, are you? And he's not wearing a mask. Like he gets like inches away from my face and like taps me on the shoulder. And he's like, you're in my seat. And I'm like, dude, the movie started at 6, and then there was credits, and we're more than an hour in the movie. It was like 7:30. Like the movie was almost over. Like it had like half an hour left. And he goes, yeah, but you're in my seat. And like my wife has a seat. I'm like, dude, there are 3 rows in front of me that are completely empty. Like, go. And he's like, yeah, but it's my seat. I'm like, dude, get the fuck out of my face. Like this movie's been going for an hour and a half. Get the fuck out of here. It was really weird, man. But
it was so weird being back in a theater. I went to see Nobody in a theater as well. So I've been to a couple theaters recently, and it's very strange, like dealing with people in a theater again.
This was the first one where it was like busy for me. Like I saw Nobody twice, and I saw Chaos Walking, and all 3 of those times, like the theater was completely empty. And I saw Godzilla. Even Godzilla was fairly empty. Like there were twice as many people in this theater as there were for Godzilla when I saw Godzilla.
It's weird, like getting used to the sounds of a theater again.
Yeah.
And like having to think about being close to people.
Yeah, it definitely is. But I think
there's a scene in the middle of this movie where Shang Tsung is walking through the desert with Melina, and he's all dirty.
Yeah.
What's he been doing?
I don't know, man.
Dirty? What's he up to? I want to know what like the day-to-day of Outworld is. I'm really unclear on how that realm operates.
And everybody kind of from Outworld, so Shang Tsung and Melina had like this weird like reverb on their voices too.
I feel like I heard that just in one scene. It threw me off, and I think it's weirder that it feels like it's not in other scenes.
Melina had it every time, and then Shang Tsung only had it in Outworld. But Melina almost always seemed to have it. It was really odd. But I think we should wrap it up. I think we were definitely a little bit more vague on this one just because it is a new movie. Like we did spoil it, but we also didn't want to completely ruin any experience for it. I think you can still go watch this movie even if you listened to the episode already. The one note that I just want to close off is like the end of the movie, Cole becomes the leader, and he's like, all right, guys, we got to kill everybody. They don't want a tournament, but we're going to give them a tournament. Hey, Raiden, you can teleport people, right? And Raiden's like, sure can, bud. And he's like, cool, well, you're going to teleport this person here and this person. And they set up these little one-on-one matches. And then Jax is like, what about Sub-Zero? And Cole's like, we're going to kill everybody first, and then we all take on Sub-Zero. And I've been rewatching Malcolm in the Middle. I started it, a few weeks back. And it made me think of like in season 1, there's a point where Reese is is complaining because everybody listens to Dewey, and like Reese is like, he's lying, and he was like, it's fine if he says it happened. Well, nobody believes me when I say I beat Sub-Zero, and Hal's like, well, nobody beats Sub-Zero. That's just ridiculous, and that just made me laugh. I thought of Malcolm in the Middle when like they were talking about how he's unbeatable, and I just thought that was great.
Maybe that's a little reference to your favorite show.
Yeah, I do love that show. But yeah, this movie is really fun. I definitely think this made sense. They've tried various ways to recreate this. They did it as a web series, and to moderate success. But I think this was a great way to bring this back to the big screen.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm in the bag for the sequels. So.
I think this is going to replace. Like, I don't think this is a good movie, but it is so fun. And I've said it before. The Fast and the Furious movies are like my Twilight movies, where I recognize they're bad, but I enjoy them. Those movies are coming to an end.
I think that this movie is better than it had any right being.
Oh, I agree. And
it's not Citizen Kane, but like it was a blast.
I think this is going to be like the new Fast and the Furious franchise, where it's like it's not a good movie, but it knows what it is, and it's fun.
Yeah, and also like this thing is built for spinoffs. We can do. There is a film. There's like a Hobbs and Shaw of Kano and Cabal in a prequel. That's its own movie.
Yeah. Plus, you can always go back to previous ones. Like there's like this like hall, like the Hall of Fame of Mortal Kombat, and like you see White Wolf. Is it White Wolf? Nightwolf, and he's in.
That's in Sonya Blade's crazy theory board.
So you see, previous versions. So like you could go back and do prequels of original tournaments and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Like this world could be huge. And they made this movie with $50 million, and it made its money back in the pandemic already. So it's like they could just churn these movies out, and people will watch these. So, but yeah, check it out. It was a fun movie.
I agree.
Yep.
Do what Mike says.
All right, Alex, where can our listeners find you?
I am on the Instagram at Dysalexic, DYS Alex IC. I'm on Twitter at Pulisci, PULISCI, and you can follow along with the movies that I'm watching on my Letterboxd, which is also at Pulisci.
Nice. And you guys can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods, get these episodes early, and get some extra bonus content. We are going to be recording a little mini episode on Mortal Kombat Annihilation, so that'll be out this week, and it'll be great. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.